Hey everybody, Ashley here. It's just a quick note to say that this episode, episode 81, is actually the second part of the full interview which started on episode 80. So if you haven't yet listened to episode 80, make sure you go check that out before continuing on with this because it might not make that much sense out of context. But either way, have a great day and thank you for checking in. Bye. And oh, yeah, if you have listened to the first part, here's the second part. Enjoy episode 81. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Um, so how has the current pandemic and the closing of theatres affected your job at the moment?
After Kinky Boots ended, Kinky Boots was such a massive undertaking. I decided to take some time to focus a bit more on voiceover and focus a bit more on photography because I'm part time semi-professional photographer in my spare time.
Photographer. Oh.
But I just when everything closed down and I saw friends of mine on shows who were in the middle of the week or in the middle of a tour or touring in different countries. A friend of mine who was in Abu Dhabi doing a performance as well, and then all of a sudden this virus took hold of the world and people were having to either make their way back or having to stop filming. I mean, filming as well, where you're working on a character and you build that character and then you've filmed half the film and now you've got to stop and you've got to go elsewhere, etc. It dealt such a massive blow, but then also the construct of social distancing does not, and the not being able to have mass gatherings as a matter of absolute protection for all of us it dealt such a massive blow, and it's dealing currently a massive blow to the performance industries. But yeah, I went about securing a microphone so I could do more voiceover work from home, so I didn't need to travel anywhere, and that's what I've been mostly focusing on. But I know that some people don't have the disposable capital to be able to do such a thing, and so yeah, it's been really difficult for people within my industry who have had basically very little to no help from the government in terms of even initially when they said about the shutting down of theaters and pubs and clubs, etc. At first it was suggested and we were like, no, it needs to be a categorical decision that theaters, pubs, clubs, etc. are areas in which you can spread and contract the virus so quickly. And then eventually it was said, but it was kind of after the fact, and then nothing was done, and nothing has been done to make sure that these industries survive. In a post-pandemic landscape, it's really been devastating.
Because we have, as someone who's on PAYE or regular work, not self-employed, the furlough scheme is there. It's been, my experience has been, I believe, very positive. I'm able to get regular income while not working and feel like I'm very, very supported by this scheme. Do you have an understanding of what support there was by the government or lack thereof? Because I remember that period where they said people shouldn't go to pubs and clubs and theatres, so people weren't going, but never said to the theatres that you should close. So we put on performances for one or two people potentially. Do you know what I mean? Or none.
Yeah.
I want. What support has there been?
They've implemented the self-employment income support system, income support scheme, which is to help self-employed people. But it's only if your income has been up to or less than £50,000 on average a year, and obviously in our industry, as on average for the past 3 years as well. And in our industry, things can vary. You might have one incredible year, but then you could have a year where you don't do very much. But if, let's say your income was way over that threshold, and then, for one of those 3 years, you had a really, really terrible year, and that happened to be just the previous year that's gone by, that means that then you're not eligible for that income support scheme. Similarly, I think for because there was another scheme that was set up, which ended up being something like £94 a week that people could claim if they had less than it was like
Oof.
less than £16,000 in their savings. And so it was almost like so a lot of people within our industry fall into the gap that both of those schemes fill. So on the surface, it looks like things are being done. So everyone goes, well, self-employed people, there's a whole scheme set up for you. But actually, there were a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of people actually in the self-employed bracket are may well be being helped by it, and that is that's wonderful. But it, it almost felt like, well, look, we've done this now, and now we can leave this and put this to bed. But people have been screaming out, for help. We're hearing about, theatres that may not be able to recover from this, tours that aren't going to ever go out, that had planned to go out this year. We're hearing about venues that may be completely lost because of the lack of help that has been awarded to our sector. I'm like, it's really, in my opinion, completely unfair to lump so many people together under the same bracket, because within the self-employed bracket, you can go from anything between earning what earning who knows how many pounds, but like, say you've got a hairdresser who has their own business and they're just one person, and they're running around doing their job. That is not directly comparable to somebody who, say, and this isn't me I'm talking about, but somebody who, say, has been a lead on the West End for God knows how long and only has that as their source of income. And now they're saying that basically there is nothing for them, and they would have been earning quite a lot of money, and now they've gone from that to, I imagine they probably have savings or they have properties or etc. It's just too general a rule to place on such an like it's an independent industry, so you're a sole contractor. Like, so how does that help? Would be my question. Like, how have you helped by putting a massive blanket rule on so many individual scenarios and individual circumstances? How have you helped?
So I take it you're against what the government have put in place then?
No, I'm solidly on the fence.
Yeah,
actually,
no.
yeah, no, completely, yeah. It's just a lack of care and a lack of foresight across the board from this government that I've really struggled with, especially I don't know, being sat at home and not working in an industry that I love, doing something that I love, and having paid taxes. There's a lot of when the self-employed income support scheme was sort of doled out, people were some people were really up in arms about it, because a lot of people, it turns out, see self-employed people as tax evaders. And I couldn't really understand it, because every year I go through my tax with my accountant, and it is the worst experience of my life. I work so hard to make sure that I do pay tax back into the government, that I would hope at least looks out for people like myself in my situation. But now I've not been able to claim anything at all from the government, me personally, I can say. And so now I just look at it and go, well, all of this, like, sort of aggression towards self-employed people that I'm seeing on various forms of social media, hashtag don't read the comments, you just sort of go, wow, like, I don't know where this mentality has come from. But yeah, I don't think enough has been done, and I'm not a big fan, let's put it that way.
That's completely fair. Because Ash, you've been self-employed for like large portions of your career, right?
Yeah. I've been very lucky, to be fair, over the lockdown and everything. The contract I got just back in mid-January, they've extended they've just keep extending it. I'm now in the same contract to the end of July, which is good. And I think it initially was supposed to end in June. So yeah, I've been quite lucky. I did take a reduced day rate to sort of for the longevity of the the contract offered. So I've been very lucky. But I know other people out there who work in my industry alone haven't been as lucky. And in fact, freelancers are always the first to go whenever something happens. And then obviously when you work in marketing as well, marketing is probably one of the departments that is first to get less funding as well. So when you're a freelance marketeer, it's, in the advertising world, it's sort of, yeah, when companies are struggling to pay staff, they're not going to be paying for marketing budgets. So yeah, it caused a bit of panic. And I know if I had have, it's funny because at one point I was weighing up different jobs, and I was like, if I take this job, it'll pay me better. I don't know if you remember, Matt, one time, one job I was offered, or was going like, we need you to start next week, and we're going to fly you off to LA for 3 weeks. And I was like, okay. But then I didn't actually, my friend who works there, Alex, you might remember Alex from whenever we worked at Iris, but he's like, I was like, oh, can I come back to you at the weekend? And then they hired somebody on the Saturday because they just needed somebody so quickly. But then, like, yeah, they went to LA for like a week and then came back, and then a week later they were made redundant because they couldn't afford to or risk keeping them on. So I was very lucky not to take that very desirable job, but and keep the one I'm at, which is also very good in case my boss listens. I do love my job.
I love your
I
workplace.
love you. Thank you for the money.
Yeah. Are you able to get any work at this time then, Yoko?
So with setting up a home studio, yes, I've been able to work on a few projects actually, which has been really good. I've been able to, so I've been working on an animation at the minute. Going into, for the first time actually, I think tomorrow, for the first time since lockdown, I'll be able to go to a studio and have a completely social distanced, studio session, which is really good. So I'm like, luckily I've been able to continue working, and, with the easement of the lockdown, meaning that you can go out and, meet another individual from a household, there's because I'm also doing photography on the side, there's the prospect of maybe being able to do some photography as well, which I haven't started just yet, because obviously, it's best to be careful right now, because I don't even really agree with the easing of the lockdown in some cases, because of how we've been told, obviously, people from BAME backgrounds do not like that term, but we'll use it for now, have been told that, the virus affects them disproportionately. So all of these easings haven't come with any information on how to make sure that as somebody from that background, you are more or less protected. And so, yeah, there has been a sort of tentative, are we able to meet up? Are we able to do this? Are we actually genuinely safe? And, you see the numbers go up and you think, well, if they're still going up, then the answer, I think, is no, personally, myself. So, meeting people outside to do photos or even maybe to do a vocal lesson or etc. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody else wasn't comfortable, and I personally, wouldn't be willing to. I would take every precaution if I were to do that, anti-backing and wearing a mask, etc. But there's just a real lack of sort of due diligence that seems to be being done by our government, whose priorities seem to be in different places. But to get back to the topic, sorry to be political, to get back to the topic, yes, I have been able to do some work, and so no, I'm not struggling, which is great. Like, people who I've worked with before have been in contact and been like, can we do this together? Can we sing this together? Can we, are you free to record this? Do you have a microphone in your house? And the answer has been yes. And so, we've been able to keep on working, despite our main source of income, because obviously both of us, myself and my partner, work in theatre. So but she's on the side that's PAYE. So luckily she's been furloughed. We've both been able to continue working, but not within the industry that we know and love.
I mean, that's excellent that you're able to sort of be agile in a way, because I believe that theatres won't open. There's no way they'll open this year, for sure. There will be no performances in that respect. But it will take, it's even starting up these workplaces, like, it's not going to be like, okay, now you can open a theatre show or a place of work, and then the show's going to happen, because you need to find the people, hire the people, make sure the spaces are there. So it's good that you're able to keep on working. To be fair,
Yeah, yeah. It's sort
um,
of like, like a lot of people have done. It's re-navigating and adjusting to the life, well, life in lockdown, basically. For some people, like I know personal trainers as well who've been doing Zoom sessions with their clients over, people who work in gyms who obviously don't have, like everybody is trying to find a way to navigate this lockdown, this quarantine period that we're all in. So it is, yeah. No, a friend of mine once said to me, because once, like it was 7,000 years ago, a friend of mine said to me when we went into lockdown, I called her up and I remember having a bit of a spiel because I was, in quite a negative place, as I'm sure a lot of people can relate. And she said, "What an opportunity this is to sort of rejig your life, to find out what you are able to do in this situation." And I remember thinking at the time, I just want to be miserable. But I also remember thinking, there are, for some people, right, this pandemic will pass, and they can go back to life as normal. But for some people in various countries around the world, there's all sorts of unrest and people being killed and God knows what, and that fear for our lives that a lot of people may be sort of feeling a proximity to right now. At least hopefully when this is all over, that fear will abate. But for some people, they're going from fearing for their lives for one reason to fearing for their lives because of a pandemic, and then straight back to fearing for their lives for other dangerous reasons. So, we are lucky in that regard.
yeah. I mean, I think there's. We'll talk about it anyway, and I guess it's not something we necessarily spoke about because I want to know what your take is on the current Black Lives Matters movement, just in general, and as a person of color yourself. And I can only imagine. And even when you talked about your stories at the start, in my mind, it's always been like, okay, so you couldn't dance for Hairspray. I wonder why that may have been. Not to like make accusations, but it would be something that would cross my mind. What is your take? What is your take on what's happening in the world at the moment in terms of George Floyd and Black Lives Matter?
Um, so just before I get into that, I'll just say about the story I told earlier about the stage. That was all on me. I mean, I read the ad and I probably didn't read the fine print. Let's be clear, because there was nobody else there who had the same skin color as me. So I was like, okay, maybe I just missed a memo.
But just saying that, there shouldn't be a reason why that they would need a white person to fill in those
Well,
positions
yeah, no,
only as well. I
you're
think is beyond just
no, yeah, exactly.
yeah.
I completely agree. I think in some cases, on some shows, especially where they're like racially driven, as in the storyline is racially driven, it is important to make sure that where the tension would be and the tension would be represented, it's made clear in auditions that this is what we're looking for, etc. And there are some some publications that I've read, well, some postings of jobs that I've read that have sort of tried to dance around it so they don't have to say anything that goes too close to being racially specific. And then there are others that have just been like, you know what, I'm going to talk about it, but I've gone about it in the worst way possible. I remember so many times across my career being asked to do a general African accent.
Oh,
And this isn't something, yeah, exactly, correct. Africa is a continent. I couldn't do a general English accent because there isn't one. So to say a general African accent, and Africa obviously not being a country by comparison, to saying English, like it's such a ridiculous request to have be made of you, but it's just the way in which people have always said. I'm like, well, would you like, and you have multiple Africans, multiple accents in one country in Africa. Anyway, I could go on about that for a very long time.
but even just as you say that, sorry, I think there's I feel like there could be another pressure though as well, which I think is on people. Is okay, where they've asked me to do a general African accent. Can I bring that up and say it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do I do the performance? Like, it's my livelihood. I want them to see me as a good actor, and I'm able to be willing to work. But also, I think there'd be a lot in there. Do you do it? Does it represent your own credibility or integrity? Should it? Because it's not your fault. I don't know what it is. There's a whole bunch of things around it for sure.
Well, no, it's exactly that. Like the notion that if you say something about it, you could be seen as being the one who is problematic or the one who is talking back or just
Difficult
like
to
being
work with.
exactly,
Yeah.
rather than somebody who is just who is compliant and gets on with it and just gives you, you know, what it is that you need. But then, yeah, to say a general, I mean, to say a general African accent is, it's just so, there's something about it that is demonstrative of a lack of care as to the accuracy or of the plight of these characters. You know, different African accents can really steer a conversation in different directions, and so you would just think that the people who are putting these, you know, submissions out are, you know, are mindful of why they want an African accent from which place. But anyway, what was what was your initial question, Matt?
What is your
In light of,
feeling about
yeah.
just the movement in the world at the moment?
Yeah, so one of my obviously it's so terrible to see people dying across the world in general, but like to see that you know, acts of police brutality in the States that have gone on for ages. And I think right now, you know, one of the main reasons why the world has really woken up in light of what's happened is because we are all at home and we can all see it. There's no going, this is too hard for me, I'm going to flip over to the next page. It's on every it's on every page, it's on every, you know, social media feed, and I'm so glad for it, because this is something that it cannot be allowed to continue. One of the ways, one of the things that I remember putting on my Instagram story was at the time, because I found myself in such a place where I was like, there's so much to say. There is so much to say about what is happening and how often it happens, and the microaggressions that people, you know, endure on a daily basis, and the things that people sort of smile and carry on, you know, after being called certain names, or after being treated a certain way, or being followed through a store because of suspicion. And, you know, I'm like, there's so much to say, but one of the ways in which racism has been able to pervade our society in such a way that we don't notice people being killed, um, being treated as lesser, etc., is that, you know, for the most part, the majority, because, you know, minorities are for a reason, the majority aren't faced with this in their daily life, so they're just not aware. One of my closest friends at the moment turned to me the other day and said, I just did not realize that any of this was a thing. And, you know, when I was on tour, I remember going to, so me and Rose went to Montenegro. We're coming back from Montenegro, and I had to fly from London the same day to Dublin so that we could start our performances there on the Monday. I think it was the Tuesday, actually, let's be clear. I got stopped in the airport for taking a selfie to let Rose know that I had arrived at the airport, because we only had 2 hours between my flights. I got stopped at the airport and taken aside because they thought me taking a picture of myself was me doing, what did they call it? They called it reconnaissance surveillance. So taking pictures of all of the cameras in the airport, even though I'd only taken one picture of myself to send to my girlfriend. And I was like, I saw so many people in the same area taking selfies, taking pictures, etc. I was like, what made me stand out from the rest of them? And I mean, anyway, I'm sure we all have stories. We all have stories about how we've been racially profiled and treated, you know, differently, or been looked at with suspicion before looked at with, you know, any sort of eyes that just sort of say, okay, I understand why you need to be here. Do you know what I mean? We all have stories. And I was like, the problem is so huge that it starts with, in my opinion, educating people, letting people know that this stuff is happening. Because some people, and a lot of people, and the people who can help to make a change are just oblivious. And then nurturing those people towards doing something for the good of everyone, so that we can finally claim, as so many people have tried to claim, that, you know, the first world, the US, you know, the UK, are as accepting as we want to believe they are. We've seen, I mean, to talk less like yesterday when we saw all of these radicalist right people, you know, marching down the streets of London to enact all sorts of, you know, and we saw videos of them enacting violence against the police, against other people of colour. I'm like, I don't. I find what they did absolutely disgusting, but in some ways, I'm like, it will wake people up to see that we are not. A friend of mine put together a poem. His name's Aaron Blair Magna, and he said, you know, Brit ain't better. He put together a poem on the topic, Brit ain't better. And we look at the States and we see these killings of you know, young black men who are just trying to live. And we go, oh, but that's a States issue. It's a States issue. We don't need to worry about that. That, of course, the States is by and large, in terms of some of the states over there, are just racist. And we're like, well, no, here, it may not be as blatant as that, but it's definitely there. It's definitely there. And so yeah, I call upon anybody who is willing to have difficult conversations, educate themselves, and come to a place of understanding, so that we can all, you know, mount this fight, this racist fight that has become subtle over time, but subtle doesn't mean it's gone, and come out the other side as the accepting country that we claim to be, that we want to be, that we hope to be.
I absolutely agree. I think education is absolutely key in this situation, and my take has been to be open and honest with the people that would like to talk, including people that are so close to me, and and it's white people and black people, mixed race people that have both sort of been crying and really emotional about what's going on at the moment. And I think we need to feel these feelings for sure.
Yeah.
White people needs to feel shocked and ashamed. I need to feel shocked and ashamed for my complicity in a sense, so that it spurs me forward into wanting to do a bit more about going on. Because we have a place of privilege as it is as well. I think for some of us in particular, and I put myself in this bracket, I think one of the reasons I might have censored myself over the past couple of years and changed from who you may have known in school in that respect is because I'm trying to fit into a world that I'm being asked to fit into, and that is actually fundamentally changing my values as a human being and as a person, because I don't want to stand out for what would be deemed as the wrong reasons. So I think that's the same for everybody, for those who may have realized it before, and for some people that are literally just finding out that some of these things are happening on a grand scale within the world. So absolutely, education is so important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
education, and yeah, it's exactly as you said. The people who are open to, because we all know that there are some people out there who just want to have an argument for argument's sake, or who just want to have a fight for a fight's sake, and those people, I hope at some point they can come around to some sort of openness to having a conversation that may. I hope they find peace with their demons. Basically, is what I'm trying to say. But
Absolutely.
there are people who do just want to find out about something, because I've had conversations with friends of mine recently who have said about their parents saying, all lives matter, because all lives do matter, and that's why I want everybody to know that all lives matter. And it it breaks my heart, because these people believe that that's the way that the world works. Do you know what I mean? Like, praising a society for something that
Mm.
they haven't yet achieved. So by saying all lives matter in hope, I mean, no, by saying all lives matter as a statement is lovely, but we don't get to say that yet. Well, we've had it until Black Lives Matter. We cannot say all lives matter. Until Black trans lives matter, we cannot say all lives matter. Until, like, there's so much injustice, and it's not just a third world issue. It's not just a second world issue. It's an everywhere, every world, our world issue, and we need to. But by diluting the argument, by saying all lives matter, all we're doing is um, perpetuating the problem. But the amount of conversations I've had to have with people, and I'm open to having those conversations, because the only way, because those people want to know, they want to understand, they want to listen. They just, they get hit with a statement that seems like it wants to. I don't know what they fear, or I don't know if they want to say something that is, more inclusive in their eyes. But that's the whole thing. It's that, we as Black lives want to be included. We want to be treated and shown that we are just as valuable and not looked at as a threat. I mean, I can list so many occasions where I've had people walk across the street from me, and not, because I've been wearing a hoodie and a tracksuit, and even then you go, well, why is that? And it's such a massive, it's an issue for, like, its own podcast at this point.
Yeah,
But
no, I agree.
yeah, but what I would say is like just being. There are some people who are black people who are tired, and they are tired of having this discussion, and who are tired of having to explain to people how and why this is still a conversation. And I understand that completely. And I hope that those people who are tired of having to have that discussion and having to educate and having to nurture people can take a rest and can take a break and then can rejoin the fight when they can. I really hope so. But for and I will be probably at that point. But like you, Matt, like you said, I've been sat on my hands for far too long, and I've invested in so many other energies that were not were just ways of me almost wasting my time. I feel like now I'm fully awake, and I'm like reading up on all of the various all the various books that any information I can get my hands on, sorry, hand. I'm trying to make sure that I'm reading it, digesting it, so that then when I do have a discussion about it, I can come from an informed point of view and then help to nurture people with an informed opinion that comes from not just my own experience as a black man, but from the history of like who knows how many people, um, and that can inform my teaching of whoever it is who wants to have that conversation.
Damn, girl. It's tough. I mean, we can literally, like, honestly, yeah, because this week has been like such a tough one for me personally. I'll say that, especially at the beginning of the week, because um, I'm open. I'm not tired at this point because I haven't really done what I would see as my work in helping the world move forward. So I'd posted online about like it's almost like a declaration to myself, but to others. And I'm not normally someone who expresses a huge amount on social media, to be fair. But it was like I'd posted a little box that said like I accept my responsibility in helping change, in helping influence the world. Because of that, I haven't done so, and as a small person in this world, I think that it's only going to be done by like collective. It's we've got powerful people, but everyone has power to a certain extent, whether it's within their own circle. So, um, yeah, I'm definitely one of the people that would like to stay open and have those tears with others, and really go through like these feelings, because yeah, it is
Yeah,
hard
exactly.
work, but it's got to be done. It's the right work. Um, I wanted to talk a little bit about, so this month, June, is Pride Week. And your character, Lola, that you played in Kinky Boots is a. I don't mind this word. I don't know how you feel about this word, but Ash, I don't believe you'd like it or not. I say queer, so I'm happy to say that anyone within the spectrum is a queer person. But
Hmm.
that's. For different people have different tastes for it. But you played, and you spoke about your partner Rose, and we said beforehand that you identify as a straight person, heterosexual. So, has that changed you as a person at all, or have you learned something from playing this character?
One of the, for me, one of the absolute joys of playing a character like Lola, who, interestingly, by the way, was not written as a gay character. Um, Initially, so Lola's sexuality never really comes into question within the show. It says in one of the character descriptions that Lola is a straight man, but it's never spoken about during the narrative. During the narrative, there is a character in the show who he actually, who he is supposed to be the person who he loves, who is a woman. So it was really interesting, like knowing different people's interpretations, and a lot of people making the assumption that Lola is queer, but also at the same time, like that by no means, like, whether Lola is queer or whether Lola is straight, the reason why it's never spoken about in the show is because what it opened my eyes to is the treatment of wanting to live your life out loud in 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 6-inch stiletto heels, in dresses and corsets, in makeup. Oh my god, I learned so much about makeup. In these amazing, incredible wigs, because you know seeing as a straight man, right? As a straight man who has gone about his life wearing, Matt, you'll know this, questionable outfits, but typical teenage black man, or typical 32-year-old black man, whatever that is. But like I'm just wearing quite. I wear quite. What's the word I'm looking for? I will wear like jeans, a t-shirt, maybe a shirt, etc. So I don't know what it feels like. I guess the approximation that I could make was like what it feels like to walk down the street in certain places, around the globe that aren't as friendly to black people, and be stared at. But to walk down the street and to want to live your life in that sort of that level, that degree of fabulousness, and just going, what, I'm here, and this isn't for you to for me to say, for you to deal with it, but like, why, what is it about me that I can't live my life like this? And so seeing that, being able to play that character, and putting on all of these clothes, which also like had a transformative effect on the way that I spoke and the way that I carried myself, and having to embrace a more sort of feminine side of or effeminate, I should say, side of my being, especially as a black man growing up in an African household. Men don't do that, or men do this, or men don't do that, men do this, etc. All of these questions about sexuality and sexual identity came into play. Like, I'm sure, Matt, you probably remember from school, certain things were bandied about regarding, oh, if you do that, you're gay, or if you do that, you're gay, or if you behave like this, you're gay. And
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, as a gay man, like, well, I didn't know back in school back then, and I think that I passed as like a straight person for sure, because I couldn't even imagine like being sassy at school. Like, it didn't even cross my mind that was a possibility, to just have like, to be like so fabulous in a way, because you're told at such a young age, especially back then. I don't know what it's like now for children, to be fair, but I have a feeling it might be somewhat similar, that you can't be expressive in every way, And we remember, I don't know if you remember, the few gay people that were very effeminate in school were definitely not treated well.
No.
Like, in no way, shape, or form.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And so to now be in a role, where again, like, because of the costumes, the glitter, the makeup, the glitz, the glam, assumptions are made about the character that are actually never quantified in the story. It was really interesting to portray that role, and to speak words that, like, again, like, I think that the way in which I approached it, right, was, when I was younger, there were a lot of things that I wanted to do, and ways in which I wanted to be, that either weren't how a black boy in North London in a secondary school would act, or not how, and, again, I love my parents to pieces, and this is no bad marker on them. We need to remember where people and how people are brought up, and how that then makes them, behave or act, etc. But there were conversations, because of my interest in art, my interest in media studies, and my interest in things that were considered to be flamboyant. There were questions as to my sexuality when I was growing up as well. And even, when I then got onto shows, and I would talk to people, but I keep my personal life private, just as a general thing. People would ask me questions. No, people wouldn't ask me questions. They would ask people close to me questions about my sexuality. And so I remember being on shows and people being like, "But Kai, you're gay, right?" And I'd be like, "Well, no. What? I don't know what would make you think that. Oh, well, you're always well dressed, or you're well spoken, or." And I'd be like, "What does that actually even mean?" So the way I approached it was like, having had all of these questions about me my entire life, I've just lived my life the way that I would live my life, and that strength that I found, in Lola, was that she lives her life to the nth degree, and having to every single day deal with certain people, like Don in the story, treats Lola a certain way because of the way she chooses to dress, and the ire that got in out of me, like I was so personally angry, which I then tried to transfer through to the character, and then tried to Lola breaks it down in a brilliant and fantastic way, and solves the situation in an incredible way. And I was just like, the power that she has as a character, and the strength that she has to gear herself up with every single day. I'm getting to experience that through a character, but there are people who do this, who have to do this every single day. And I mean, like, it's hard enough. It's hard enough wearing that much makeup, full stop, right? And then you go out and, you know, you made such an effort in your appearance, and it takes one asshole to say one thing, and it's never just one asshole. I was like, just looking at this character, being like, I'm so blessed as a man who, as a straight man, to have experienced that role. Because yeah, so doing the role, coming out of stage door every night to somebody who'd felt empowered by the role, and who had felt like, you know what, I've seen, watching you on stage, I now feel like I can go and, you know, live my life out loud. There was a boy in Nottingham, God bless him, who had always wanted to wear dresses. Whenever he went to school, he wanted to wear dresses. And he came to the show out of his house for the first time in a dress, and his mum came with him, and I saw him at stage door, and he said to me, you know, thank you so much for tonight. And then he couldn't really speak much more, but his mum was like, he's always wanted to wear dresses, and this is the first time he's come outdoors in a dress. But then we heard the following day that when he made his way back to his house, on, you know, public transport, he was treated a certain way by members of the general public, and it was a negative way, not obviously not positive. And I was like, my heart breaks. Like, I would go to work and be like, I'm doing this for, you know, 2.5 hours every night, and yes, it's physically painful because those heels, 6-inch heels, are no joke, but it really opened my eyes to the plight of the LGBTQ community in a way that I don't think I would have understood having not played that role, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, Ash, go on.
No, I was just agreeing. Yeah, it makes 100% sense.
Like, I mean, to go back a little bit in terms of, well, I think every person should do drag, right? I believe that every single person in the world should do drag in some form or another, because it literally does just change your body. You become a different person, or not even a different person. I think that's probably a bit of a lie, although you had to play another person. It's almost like the person that you want to be comes out at its like most expressive form, and your body changes, the way that you speak changes, you hold yourself. It's impossible to put on a corset, heels, and makeup and a wig. Do you know the most important thing, though, and you might think this, is the eyelashes, bitch. The eyelashes change everything about what you're doing, in my opinion. That is what drag is. When you put an eyelash on, done. Job finished. Let's go. But you learn so much about yourself and what you can do, which you know, you can't repress anything when you're dressed the way that you are. It's impossible. You have to push harder. I'm so jealous of your outfits there, man. That shit is killer. You were beautiful. Beautiful.
Oh my god. The dresses, like, there are so many people to thank for the dresses. God, the dresses, the shoes, the everything. For me, right? So Matt, you've just said it was the eyelashes, and absolutely, they make your whole look just goes from 0 to 60. Or actually, no, it goes from like 35 to 60. Let's be clear. But for me, as an actor, anyway, for me it was the heels.
Oof.
Because once you're in those heels, as painful as those are, you are lifted and you are pushed forward, and that feeling of being elevated on your heels and, like, you know, literally like leaning forward, all you can do is plow on. Like, it made me feel so it made me feel so strong to be in those shoes and be like, you know, no bitches, I'm here, and I'm here to absolutely tell you what's up. Like, it was so, I had said to my agent, I really want to do a transformative piece, and that role came along, and I was like, I could not have asked for a more incredible transformative piece. And then equally going back from, so Lola is glitz and glam. She's this, you know, larger than life drag queen, and there's a scene, I think it's just after Sex is in the Heel, where you come off stage and you have all of that, like your heels, you take off your heels, you take off the dress, you take off that fabulous blue hat, and that you have a layer of foundation put over your initial makeup. So you're in 2 layers of makeup at this point, and you come back on stage in brogues, a brown suit with an orange shirt and a brown waistcoat, and it's at the point where Lola Simon, he comes in and he tries to fit in. So he's come in to the factory so that he can work without anything getting caught in the machines, etc. And he gets laughed at for trying to look like a boy. But there's something about going from, you know, the sex is in the heel and being so lifted, and then having that taken off you and being back on flat ground in your brogues on stage. That is just like everything about the costume design and everything about the shoes really aided and really helped my performance. But that feeling of being like, I'm now being forced to wear something that I do not feel comfortable in. And for me, obviously, brogues and a suit, etc., I'm used to that. I really quite enjoy it. But in that character, I was like, wow, going from feeling this powerful to feeling this small. It's no wonder that, you know, you would. Why would you want to live your life in anything else if you can feel that powerful in those outfits that really make you feel like yourself? Do you know what I mean? You come alive.
Yeah. I mean, it's, and I guess many people feel that in real life, because then this is supposed to be like the clothes that like restrict you and bring you back down, and now you need to fit into our space as opposed to just to express who you are or who you want to be, or a version of yourself. Which many people, like you say, that's what a lot of people are fighting for, just to be themselves. And I believe that if you're not hurting anyone, why can't I just be who I want to be? You know?
Yeah, exactly. If I'm not doing damage to anyone, or like,
I have a.
it opened my. Sorry, go
I
on.
was gonna say I have like a mantra which I like live by, which is as long like I tell people to do what makes you happy as long as you're not hurting somebody else or breaking the law. Just go for it.
Yeah,
And I think it's completely appropriate,
Mm.
because I mean, I assumed that Lola was a queer character, but I'd say, which is my bad for sure. But also, I think that if Lola is or isn't, definitely represents a group of people whose voices aren't always heard in that respect.
Mm.
Um,
yeah,
you know, and I would say to you, Yoko, as well, that actually, like, I think for me, if I were to offer my opinion, I think it's quite a strong thing to not go into or reject the idea that people would question your sexuality and say, well, you're gay, aren't you? You're not going out being like, oh, no, I'm definitely straight. Like feeling this idea that you need to then
Defend it.
reassure
Yeah.
everybody else's own insecurities about themselves or assumptions by then, well, if people see you as straight, they see you as straight. If they don't, do you know what? It's really not a problem. It's no skin off my back kind of situation. So I think that's quite a strong and very confident way of behaving with these questions that will be coming to you.
it's just, yeah. Thank you. I think I think it's I think when people ask you questions, or they talk to you about something that is to do with you, that they've not even asked you, like, they've not spoken to you about it, so they've not found out about you, but it reflects more so on their state of mind, and maybe will cause them to ask themselves questions about like, one thing that I had when I was growing up, right? Well, when I was growing up, when I went to St. Aloysius, I got there, and I went to school to primary school in central London, and in central London, I speak the way that I speak, basically. And so then I got to school, and there was, in primary school, I was the only black kid in my class, apart from Deng and the Filipino kids. And Deng was from Kenya, I think his family was from Kenya. And then I got to secondary school, and the majority, like, so many people in the class were black, and I was like, wow, like, people who have the same skin color as me in such abundance. And then I would speak to them, and they'd be like, oh, yo, why'd you talk like that? And I'd be like, and they'd be like, oh, you, like, I've struggled with the identity of, like, being, like, not black enough for some of my life, because I talk a certain way, or I have certain sensibilities, etc. And I think the danger of, like, saying, okay, well, if it's, straight people are not well dressed, that's a generalization that you've made, that speaks more about your personality. Or black people can't be well spoken. That's again a really, really terrible stereotype that speaks more about your personality and your acceptance of the world around you than it does about who I am in the middle of all of it. So, I mean, you know, as a teenager, there was part of me that was just like, I don't get it. I am black, so how can you say that? And as an adult, I look back and I go, well, you know, it really was more of a reflection of, and is more of a reflection on people's sensibilities. So I hope that people do question themselves.
That's so mad that you question your blackness as well, because you know, where you grew up literally was an epicenter of blackness, right? The house that you grew up in was literally a black house in the middle. You know, it's an embassy for your country. Like, it's literally that. But then you go to school, and I've always questioned my own because I'm mixed race. I also speak well. In comparison to the rest of my family, for example, or people would say that. And my mum isn't black. Like, you know, she's not black. So it's quite interesting that it's quite interesting that we have that sort of same connection in that respect, really, because you're constantly questioned on a behavior, a cultural thing, when actually, if anyone was black, in my opinion, it would be you, 100%. I've seen your family. I've seen your dad. He is black. Your dad is black. Okay, like, oh God.
Yeah, but
He's so scary. He's so scary as well. Not because he's black, just because that bitch is scary. Having to tell him that you were Lola, I have no idea how that conversation would have went, but it would have been like coming out, I'm sure.
so like again, like I mean, coming from an African background, I remember telling my dad that I wanted to study drama at university, and that felt like what I imagine would be like coming out. I was like, Dad, I want to study drama at university, and he said to me, come with me. And I was like, oh my God, this is the day I die. So then he took me to his office, and I was like, I don't feel any better. Sat me down and was like, yo, Kai, I want to tell you how proud I am of you for making this decision. And I was like, whoa, what? How? What's
Tears.
I don't get it. Exactly. And it was because, and this really opened my eyes, right? He said, so my second eldest brother wanted to be a singer, and my dad said to him, absolutely not, you will study law and, you know, or study, you know, subjects that make sense, which is why my fear was doubled when I spoke to my dad about wanting to do drama. But then he said to me in his office that day, he was like, I wanted to be a stand-up comic, but when I grew up in Rhodesia, and people just, you know, black people were not stand-up comics. People, you know.
Your dad wanted to be a stand-up comic.
Yep.
Oh my days! He would have just stood there being like, "This is my joke." like, just like now you laugh, and everyone's like, "Aha, aha." No, I actually don't know your dad that way. I'm sure he's really funny, but he's such a brick wall.
He's so strict, but like the more like so. You remember him from way back, Matt. He was so strict, and I remember being terrified of him. Like, you did not cross John Ushe. Like, you did not cross him. And then in recent years, like when I go for drinks with him, or when I take him to, you know, the shows that I work on, etc., he's just he is that person who can go into a room and charm anybody to you know, have a good conversation with, and he has people laughing constantly. And I was like, where was this side of you when I was messing around in school? And I was like, oh, it's because I was messing around in school. That was it. That's why he didn't. But yeah, so he wanted to be a stand-up comic. He wanted to go into the arts, but because he couldn't, I think then there develops a fear that, you know, your children won't succeed if they try to do anything within the arts, because, you know, you go by you learn through your own experiences, and then you teach a lot of the time through your own experiences. And my dad's experience was this, so I was like, I completely understand his level of protection. But yeah, so then when I then took on the role of Lola, I was like, you know, I spoke to my mum in the kitchen. I was like, Mum, I got the job. And she was like, which job? And I was like, I got Lola, because we'd spoken about it before. She was like, oh my gosh, congratulations. And then I heard outside of the kitchen, congratulations for what? And I was like, oh, here we go. I was like, Dad, I got the role in Kinky Boots. And my dad said, which role? And I was like, the role of the lead drag queen. And he was like, okay. And then he walked away, and I was like, was that a good okay? Was it a bad okay? I don't know. And then he came to see the show when we were in Oxford, and he came into my dressing room, and my mum was looking at my clothes very much like she, had another daughter. She was like, "Oh, you get these shoes, and you get this dress, and you get," uh, and I was like, "Yes, mum, those are mine." She's, "And you wear these?" I was like, "Yes, mum, I wear those." And my dad was just again silent the whole time. And then he watched the show, and after the show, he came over to me and he was like, "Thank you, wow, what a great show." And I was like again, not knowing how he was going to take it, what he was gonna think, because again, we were raised in two completely different societies. As much as my dad's known me my entire life, he knew a whole different world than I did, and I'm sure I don't know if you are aware, but back in those days, gay rights in Zimbabwe, and I'm not too sure on the current situation, but they just, it wasn't a thing that was spoken about, and it was almost persecuted, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. So I mean, the idea again that his son was going to be a performer was hard enough. Thinking that maybe this was my way of coming out to my dad, as the show, as saying, "Dad, come and see a show, and this is my way of coming out to you." I didn't, but hey, I may well could have. It just made me think these are things that are so far from his sensibilities, and now this is opening up discussions that I can have with my dad. If say one of us, because we're a massive family, if one of us had come out as gay, it would have been a huge topic of conversation because of my family's sensibilities coming from Zimbabwe. But yeah, it was. He was proud. He was proud, and my mum was like, "Yes, please, more dresses, more wigs."
That's amazing. You have to be. You could not be. I mean, just watch. I never watched Doing Kinky Boots, but just watching it. I mean, the show is one of the best shows going. Like honestly, just the music's ridiculous. So yeah, you have to be proud. And to achieve what you have, I would say, is amazing as well. Like I'm definitely proud of you as a person, and I think that you have excelled exceptionally in your work, and I just hope that you continue to do so. To be fair, and lift us all up, lift us all up. Carry on the flag of Aloysius, and show us how it's done. For sure.
Thank you. And yeah, I mean, there are. It's so good again talking to people from, well, people who I grew up with as well, because you it's so interesting thinking, once upon a time I was that kid with epilepsy who was told, not even to, I couldn't even watch, films in the dark. And now, people like, yourself who lived through those years with me, seeing where, what I'm doing now, and I never thought that it would be possible. And I think that, yeah, there are a lot of people who may well make assumptions of me nowadays. Who knows? But yeah, it's good it's been really good. It's to talk to you about these things.
Amazing.
So thank you.
No, thank you for coming on.
100%. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, I think that's a wrap. If that's cool. Is there anything you want to mention, guys?
No. I just want to thank you very much for coming on and telling your story. That was great. So insightful. I think I've loved theater for years, and just to hear the perspective from a straight black guy, like living in a world different to my own, it's always just good to be open and learn, I guess.
Well, thank you for listening. Thank you for allowing me to share these stories.
You can.
Yeah, no, it's been wicked.
You can speak for days. You can tell a story. You can tell you work in the performance because you're like, and I'm like, hooked
The
on,
bitch could talk
hooked
before
on
anyway,
everyone.
boy. In school, he couldn't stop.
I thought we could talk, but this one takes it to another level.
Oh damn! Literally, but I went for the toilet halfway through.
I've had a whole Sunday. I've had a whole Sunday lunch, and
yes.
yeah.
And
No,
it's
it
so
was
weird because I really want to hear more. It's actually bad because I really want to hear a lot more. But I guess we can only go on for so long. But I think every bit that you've spoken about, I've actually wanted to ask more questions or just go in a bit more. But you know what? We'll leave that for another day, and maybe we should just chat more often. Do you know what I mean? Actually,
Exactly.
exactly. It's good that. Well, no. To be fair, it's good that we can still be friends after such a long time. I will say that because we all grow up within our lives, and I've taken a lot of something I've learned about recently, in particular, in the last 2 weeks, I would even say, is how much I've taken for granted. In particular, the relationships that I find are really, really important. And not to stay with you or anyone else, but it's about having those people in your lives that you want to that add to your life, but also take those moments. I'll take this moment and be like, do you know what? I'm really glad that we've known each other for almost 20 years, really, when you think about it.
Yeah. Wow.
To be fair, so the majority of our lifetime, and obviously there's long periods where we don't talk, but I'm really happy that we can come together and it's as, in my opinion, relaxed and easy as possible. Like, I just asked you, do you want to come on? You said, like, listen, we're still friends. I'm down. Like, and it's good to know that that you are there the same way that I would love to be there for you in the same way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Wicked. So yeah, thank you very much, Ashley, for sitting silent and quiet. Are you there? I was like, hello.
I was like, still here. No, I genuinely, I loved this recording. Matt, you obviously did a great job pulling focus onto you and entertaining all the questions. And obviously, thank you very much. I'm going to call you Yokai, but I know it's not your name. Thank you very much.
It's so weird, right? So, is this still going to be part of the podcast?
Yeah, unless you want me to edit it out.
Can be or can't be. Oh, yeah.
But what's so weird is that obviously I meet a lot of people through theatre, and my name in theatre is Kai, and I shortened it because a lot of people had difficulty pronouncing my name. So I was like, you know what, let me just shorten it to Kai because then it will be easier for people to pronounce. And then I think it was like maybe 2 years into my career. I've been doing this for 10 years now. 2 years into my career, I was like, man, I really miss the name Yokai. But I was like, but now all of my credits are under Kai, and I can't really go back. And so when people call me Yokai, or my dad Yokai, I immediately feel either more at home or more just more relaxed. Which is it's a strange sort of psychological thing that I've inflicted on myself. But yeah, so by all means, call me whichever you'd like. If you feel like calling me Yokai, by all means. For me, it's neither here nor there.
Oh God, I remember in primary school. I remember in school when you started. The trouble you had with people saying your name and teachers, and you'd be like, "Oh, okay, you okay? You okay? You are."
Literally, I remember a choreographer saying to me in the middle of a session, while I was still going by Yokai, said to me, "You Akie, go and stand on 8."
Uakie.
And I was like, how did you, how did you get there? I don't understand. And so I went then to correct her, and I said, oh, it's Yokai. And she doubled down. She went, Uakie, go and stand on 8. And I was like, oh wow, okay.
What a bitch.
So I went and stood on 8.
Let me guess that she was white. I'll make a wild assumption.
See, this is why I asked if we're still on the air.
Yeah. Anyway, let's wrap it up. Yeah. So, Yokai, have a lovely evening, afternoon, and the rest of the weekend. And thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yep. Oh, very, very welcome.
Oh, sorry, I keep talking over you today. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. Any wonder I'm so quiet. No, thank you very much for coming on. Have a lovely evening. Have a lovely week. This comes out on Thursday, so have a lovely weekend, listeners.
Bye, Ashley.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye, everyone.